I mean, I totally get what she's saying, but honestly, I took it personally. I was like, hey, the other day I posted something on my community tab, and it was a question that I had for all of you because I was curious whether or not you were all in the same place that I was. I have been so busy this year, and it's really, and I shouldn't use it as an excuse. I honestly, I'm going to get very vulnerable with you here because the last couple of years, I have really kind of slacked off, and I don't mean just two, probably several back. I did send Christmas cards out, I don't know, many years ago, but 2 years ago, I had every best intention. I actually had a lot of cards made, but then I ended up traveling, and by the time I got back, I mean, it was literally a week before Christmas, and it was too late. I couldn't send cards out at that point, which honestly made me feel like a complete failure. I never forget because I really wanted to get cards out that year, and I just couldn't, and I did feel like a failure. And then last year my mom died, and that was just not going to happen. And this year I have a job that I'm working a lot of hours at that I love, and it's a great job. But between that and putting content out on the channel, because we've been filming a lot and we have a lot of things in the pipeline, time is actually a thing for me. Plus, of course, staying married and, all the other things that come in with life. And I just kind of gave myself the grace to say, you know what, Ingrid, it's not going to happen this year. Until the other day. Yeah, I posted a poll for you guys, and in it I asked kind of where you were at, and the results completely shocked me. I did not expect so many of you to be in the same place that I was. Here we are, coming up on the middle of November, and a plan? I don't have a plan. There's no plan. I don't think it's going to get done. And so, I was like, okay, it's just not going to get done. Maybe I resort to buying cards, but then again, I still have to address them. And I feel like that's the problem. I feel like it's about the addressing and the putting in the envelopes and getting them in the mail because I don't want to do labels. It sounds so stupid, but still, this is what goes through my mind until I saw this comment. And full disclosure, I am going to call her out a little bit, but I did call her ahead of time and say, hey, is it okay that I talk about this in a video? She's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I wouldn't put it out into the world. I wouldn't have written it in a comment if I wasn't okay with what I said. So yeah, I love her and respect her for that. I put this poll out and she wrote in it, I'm halfway done, which was very impressive. I was very impressed with that. And then my friend Lisa Harrell, who I was on a design team with, we go way back. She said, I feel like I'm going to scratch people off my list this year. And to that, I said, hey, I fall into that group. Don't you dare. And the reason that she was going to scratch people off the list was because she wasn't getting the cards in return. And it's not a tit for tat type of thing, because that's not Lisa. This is a real thing. Because I think of myself, and I've noticed over the last couple of years, and maybe you have too, you'll have to let us know in the comments, I also haven't really been receiving a lot of cards in the last couple of years. It's those couple people that I always get cards from, and the couple family members that send out the picture cards. But when you're making cards, that's a whole nother thing, because that takes time and resources. Let's be honest, Christmas cards aren't cheap to make. So it really kind of got me thinking, how am I actually going to get this done? Because if Lisa's so willing to cross me off her list, who else has done that? Because I haven't sent one. And it's not about the fact of getting the card back in return. That's not what it's about. For me, I send Christmas cards because I envision somebody going to the mailbox, and yes, in my mind, everybody has that beautiful, idyllic mailbox that they walk down to and open, preferably snow-colored with, the greenery around it, and maybe there's a cardinal chirping in the background. I don't know. I've got this thing in my head. Maybe I'm crazy. But in my mind, they're going to the mailbox, and when they open it and they see cards, maybe it's a stack of cards, or maybe it's just the one for me, there's a smile, right? That's what I envision. It's not about me getting the cards in return, it's about me sending the cards. So why am I so willing to not do that this year? What is wrong with me? And this made me think of one other thing. And if this helps you, I hope it does, because it has helped me tremendously. A little while back at work, somebody was really going through something, and just something in the moment that kind of came up, and they weren't able to actually show up for a meeting. They didn't think they were going to with a client, and they needed help, and they asked me. Now, full disclosure, I'm a people pleaser. Everybody kind of knows this about me, so if anybody's going to say yes, it would be me. In the moment, in front of a couple other people, I said, you know what, any other time I would, but I can't. And it was so hard for me to say no. It's been something that I've actually been practicing because of again, people pleaser. And I read a book called Not Nice. And if you're a people pleaser, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description. It's the best book ever. And my one friend, Len, he said to me, later on, a couple days later, he said, you know, Ingrid, you said no the other day. He said, I could not have been more proud of you in that moment, which is like the weirdest thing to say, right? And I promise, I'm tying this back to Christmas cards. Stay with me. Because it was in that moment, he wanted to know why I said no. He said, because that was a hard situation, I could tell, for you to say no to. And I told him, I said, I had a hair appointment. He just started laughing. And he said, wait a minute, you had a hair appointment. And he knows how difficult it has been for me to create content and work full time, you know, make sure that I have plenty of time for my family and just life in general. And so he then said to me, well, he said, what makes your hair appointment rank so high that it's a non-negotiable for you? And I said, honestly, my appointments are with the owner of the salon. She doesn't do very many of them, and I have tried to have to move them, and it just doesn't happen. And because I get on camera and I'm on Zoom every single day with clients, the gray is a thing. And even though I am not a girly girl, I cannot constantly look at myself like that because it starts to chip away at my confidence. True story. He started laughing and he put it all right back on me and said, well, this is very interesting. How do we get your YouTube channel to rank as a hair appointment? And all of a sudden, it was as if the skies opened up and the music came out, and I was like, duh, this is what I have to do. I have to make blocks on my calendar and treat them like hair appointments. And I did that. I knew that I couldn't do it at the end of the day. I had to do it first thing in the day. So I made chunks of 2 to 3 hours worth of time. We broke it down as to what I needed every single week. I made them the same color as I make my hair appointment, because my hair appointment on my calendar is a different color to make sure that I don't schedule anything on it. I know, you're probably laughing at me, but this is truly a true story. These are these little things that you have to do for yourself to make sure that you're doing the right things. So for me, when I saw Lisa's comment the other day, it made me realize I don't send cards to get cards. And the fact that I haven't been sending cards for a few years now, it's just not acceptable for me. This was always something that meant so much to me. So how do I book more hair appointments on my schedule? I have 1 week to do this. No kidding. I got to figure this out. So in order for me to do the amount of cards, and maybe I can't get to the amount of cards that I would normally send, but at this point, I'll take a good chunk. I am sitting down, I'm booking hair appointments. Yeah, that's what I call them. I'm going to film it so that you guys get to see exactly how I'm going to get this done. I am committing to making Christmas cards this year. If I can do this, you can do this. I know that I have a couple little chunks. The actual writing out and the actual addressing is going to be a thing, but I can think of a couple spots in my upcoming schedule where I can do this. We got this, right? Together as a community, and if you don't have the time and you can't do this, that's okay too. But I want to hear in the comments, what's your plan? Where can you book a hair appointment in your schedule in the next week or two? We can totally do this together. We are a community. Let's hold each other up. Let's support each other. So I'm challenging you. And Lisa, I don't want you to send me that Christmas card until I've sent you one first. hers will probably go in the mail first because I want that card. I like her cards. She's really talented. I'll leave her Instagram handle in the description below. And for those of you that need a little bit of inspiration, I got a playlist right here with some of my absolute favorite Christmas cards. But honestly, I would rather you leave me a comment first below. So pause the video if you need to go on, leave me a comment, tell me your plan, and whether or not you're with me.